Reading and controlling a person's mind is perhaps the one power we don't want anyone else to have. Man is on a quest to develop machines that read each other's thoughts.
Is it possible that hackers of the future could somehow manage to peek inside our own heads? Yes.
The brain's complexity dwarfs that of any existing computer. There are approximately 100 billion nerve cells, or neurons, in the human brain.
Inside our heads, the nerve cells are all engaged in kind of a telephone-like conversation.
Being able to listen in on these millions of telephone-like conversations all taking place at once. As information passes through the brain, the electrical impulses between neurons can be heard. This is the actual sound of a brain neuron firing. We can literally hear thoughts. But how do we translate those sounds so we know what the person is thinking? At Brown University, they are working with tiny computer chips that can be implanted into the brain to transmit neuron impulses to a computer for mind-reading interpretation. It's like connecting your iPod to a computer and downloading music. Scientists can now connect your brain to a computer.
So this is the next generation sensor system. It consists of the same electrode array, the Davy aspirin-sized 100 electrode array that goes into just the surface of the brain.
This tiny chip monitors 100 different neurons as they fire. It's called brain gate, developed by Dr. Donahue. The way it works is that the tiny chip he's holding in his hand can be implanted in a person's brain. The chip picks up electrical impulses, which specially designed software then interprets as the actions a person wants to perform. The chip can read a person's thoughts, much like a computer can recognize a voice and interpret what it is saying. He places the chip on his scalp. The chip listens in on his thoughts. Real-time images of the electrical impulses firing inside Dr. Donahue's brain. Embed a chip in the brain and one in the machine, and it can all be done wirelessly.
By taking the signals from the brain and running them to the outside world, or through signal processors that are in fact models of the nervous system. That means we actually understand how the nervous system works.
Once this technology is perfected, will reading brain waves be as common as picking up a wireless computer connection?
We can interface with machines directly so that we didn't have to look at screens. We could basically surf the internet by just plugging something into the back of our heads. Is it possible that hackers of the future could somehow manage to peek inside our own heads and take the secrets out of those? Do we need to create some kind of a mental firewall to stop other people from breaking inside our skulls?
The day may be approaching when you can send someone a text message just by thinking about it via a chip implanted in your brain. It turns out we may not even need the chip. One company is already developing a portable technology that can intercept your thoughts without surgical implants.
The audio is a small sensor that rests on the surface of the skin above the vocal cords, and it captures the activity that's the instruction signal that the brain sends to the vocal cords that you do normally in order to speak. But in the case of the audio, the sensor is so sensitive that it doesn't require a person to actually speak in order to produce speech.
Callahan designed a sensor that can read our brain signals. How? The brain is the master control center of speech. When we communicate, the brain tells the mouth what to say. So, speech is essentially thoughts sent to our vocal cords via nerve signals that are then converted to words. Our nerve endings emit signals associated with speech. So, for instance, when you think about saying orange, the brain sends the message to the larynx. Even though the larynx might be damaged or missing, the audio picks up that nerve pulse, and a tiny computer translates that thought into the word orange. Nothing has to be implanted. The sensor merely has to be on the surface of the skin near the nerves.
Audio device, it captures the activity that his brain sends to his vocal cords, and words get translated by the computer.
Just as amazing is that the audio can give a paralyzed person who's been robbed of speech the power to once again talk. Hello?
Hi, Michael. How are you?
I'm fine. How are you doing?
Do you remember Alexander Graham Bell's first phone call?
Yeah, I do.
I can come here. I want to see you.
Sure. This is only the beginning of some things that are capable using this type of technology. We often get asked if the audio picks up thinking or my thoughts, and the answer is no, definitely not. You may be thinking right now about things like, that you have to go to the bank later today, or you're hungry. But unless we have an actual desire to communicate those things, then there's no activity for us to pick up.
In other words, it picks up the words on the tip of your tongue, not in the back of your mind.
One possible strand of mind control would be a sort of thought theft, actually reading people's minds and extracting the information. Now, clearly, this would be of huge interest and use to the intelligence agencies.
One breakthrough uses an advanced form of MRI technology called a functional MRI.
One technology that's being developed with an eye toward doing that is called SSRM tech. Semantic Stimuli Reaction Measurement Technology. One scary possibility that we would have to guard against is that, is it possible that hackers of the future could somehow manage to peek inside our own heads?
Some unwitting subjects.
Starting in the 1950s and running up through at least the early 1970s, the CIA was involved in a variety of different experiments in which it was trying to alter the minds of subjects without their knowing it. They used drugs, they used a variety of other sorts of behavioral modification techniques, all aimed at trying to see just what they could do to change people's memories, whether they could cause people to forget things that had happened to them.
The CIA's program in experimental mind control became known as MK Ultra.
MK Ultra was a government program to see whether through various different techniques people could be made to do things which they wouldn't normally do. MK Ultra, the M is mind, K is control, and Ultra is breaking the code. So this is basically breaking the code of the mind, unlocking the secrets of the mind, and basically controlling the mind.
The MK Ultra project was officially launched on April 13, 1953, on the order of CIA Director Allen Dulles. Early efforts focused on a newly discovered drug, lysergic acid diethylamide, LSD. Provoked by the Chinese and Korean experiments into mind control, starting in 1953, the CIA began carrying out covert mind control experiments of its own on unwitting subjects. Drugs were at the center of many of these experiments. LSD was administered to military personnel, mentally ill patients, even members of the general public, usually without a subject's knowledge or consent. Eventually, the testing involved a number of other drugs. At least 2 known deaths were linked to these secret mind control experiments. The CIA also found unknowing human guinea pigs in Canada, where they recruited and secretly funded the work of Dr. D. Ewan Cameron, called mind depatterning experiments.
Dr. Cameron was one of a number of people who was fascinated by the idea of personality. If you could measure the elements of personality, perhaps you could, in effect, take pieces of personality, deconstruct it, and kind of lay it there, and then maybe rebuild it.
To test his mind control theories, Dr. Cameron used the following technique. Subjects would be put into a deep sleep and only be awakened long enough to undergo daily electroshock therapy treatments. 150 volts of electricity pulsing through a patient's brain. This went on sometimes for a month. More than 80 universities and institutions took part in the MK Ultra project.